All right, let's dive into something that affects all of us here in Israel, travel insurance.
Yeah, such an important topic, especially for a country like Israel where, well, people travel a lot,
For sure, for sure.
both coming and going.
Exactly. So whether you're heading out to explore the world or you're welcoming visitors to this beautiful country, we're going to break down why understanding travel insurance is key.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you don't want to think about it when you're planning this amazing trip.
Right, you're thinking about the fun stuff.
Exactly, but it's one of those things you really can't afford to overlook.
Okay, so let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What exactly is travel insurance?
In the simplest terms, it's a safety net.
Okay, a safety net for what exactly?
Well, for all the unexpected things that could happen when you're away from home, especially when you're outside of Israel. Things like, medical
No,
emergencies.
yeah, those are never fun.
No, not at all. And healthcare costs, especially abroad, can be, well, it can be pretty scary.
I can imagine, yeah.
And then there are things like lost luggage, trip cancellations, those kinds of things.
So travel insurance basically steps in to protect you financially from all of that.
Exactly. It gives you that peace of mind, knowing you're covered if something is wrong.
That makes a lot of sense. So why is it particularly important in the context of Israel?
Well, as we said, Israelis love to travel,
They sure do.
but also Israel has a very high standard of healthcare.
Right, one of the best in the world.
Exactly. But that high standard also comes with, sometimes high
So
costs.
for someone visiting from abroad, it can get quite expensive if they need medical attention.
Exactly. And that's where travel insurance comes in.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we understand why it's important, let's break down what travel insurance actually covers.
Okay, so most basic plans will cover your essential medical expenses. Things like doctor's visits, hospital stays, emergency medical transport, the essentials.
So if you get sick or injured while you're traveling, you're covered.
Exactly. And then you have the option to add on what are called extensions.
Okay, extensions, I've heard of those, but what exactly are they?
Think of them like add-ons, extra layers of protection.
Got it.
So let's say you're planning a ski trip, which, well, obviously not so common for Israelis, but
Should
maybe.
people do it?
Yeah, exactly. So for a ski trip, you might want to add an extension that specifically covers winter sports activities.
Makes sense. Those could be pretty risky.
Right. Or maybe you're worried about your luggage getting lost. You know how airlines can be.
Oh, don't even get me started.
So there's an extension for that, too.
Okay, so it's about customizing your coverage based on your trip and your concerns.
Exactly. It's not one size fits all. You pick and choose what you need to feel secure.
That's really helpful.
Hmm.
Now let's talk about traveling to Israel specifically. What should tourists coming to Israel know about travel insurance?
Well, first and foremost, it's just as important for them to be covered as it is for Israelis going abroad.
Even though Israel has a great healthcare system, you're saying?
Exactly. Because again, the costs can be high for those who aren't insured.
I see, yeah.
And here's an interesting tip. Sometimes it's actually cheaper for tourists to get travel insurance in Israel.
Oh, really? That's good to know.
Yeah, it's worth checking out.
Okay, so we've established that travel insurance is essential for both Israelis traveling abroad and tourists coming to Israel. But with so many different policies out there, how do you know which one to choose? It can be a bit overwhelming.
It definitely can. But don't worry, there are some key things to keep in mind.
Okay, lay them on me.
First, consider your destination.
Okay, so where you're going matters.
It matters a lot because, well, healthcare costs vary significantly from country to country.
So if you're going to a place with really expensive healthcare, like the U.S., for example,
Yeah, you'll need a policy with much higher coverage limits than if you were going, say, to somewhere in Southeast Asia.
that makes sense. So destination is key. What else?
Think about the duration of your trip.
Okay, so how long you're going for?
Exactly. Are we talking a quick weekend getaway or a month-long adventure?
Right, that makes a difference.
A big difference. The longer you're away, the higher the chances that something could happen. So you might want a more comprehensive policy.
So tailor the insurance to the length of the trip. Got it.
Yeah.
What about those exciting activities we talked about earlier, like skiing and scuba diving?
Exactly. The adventure stuff. That's where those extensions come in really handy. You can get coverage specifically for those activities.
Okay, because they come with higher risks, I guess.
Right. And another important thing, especially for Israelis, is to consider any pre-existing medical conditions.
Okay, why is that so important?
Well, it's crucial to disclose any pre-existing conditions to your insurance company.
So they know about them.
Yeah, because it could affect your coverage. If something happens during your trip that's related to a pre-existing condition and you didn't disclose it, they might not cover you.
So transparency is key.
Absolutely. And then, well, it's not the most pleasant thing to think about, but given the situation sometimes.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's wise to think about the political and security situation of your destination.
Okay.
If you're going somewhere that's potentially unstable, you might want to consider a policy that covers things like political evacuation or even terrorism, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's about having those extra layers of protection in case the unthinkable happens.
Exactly. It's about peace of mind, knowing you're covered no matter what.
That's really reassuring. Okay, so we've talked about why travel insurance is important and what to consider when choosing a policy. But let's get practical. How can people get the best value for their money?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
Well, one of the best things you can do is shop around.
Don't just go with the first option you see.
Exactly. Compare quotes from different insurance providers, see what they offer, what their prices are, and what their reputations are like.
So do your research.
Yeah, it's worth it. And another tip, see if there are discounts for buying online. Many companies offer those.
Okay, online discounts. Got it. Anything else?
This is crucial, and I can't stress this enough. Read the policy documents carefully.
Oh, the dreaded fine print.
I know, it can be tedious, but it's so important. Make sure you understand the terms and conditions, the exclusions, the claims process, all of it.
Don't just skim over it.
No, definitely not. You need to know what you're getting into and what you're covered for. And if something's unclear, don't be afraid to ask questions. It's your right as a consumer.
It's about being informed and empowered.
Exactly. And here's one last tip. Buy your travel insurance as soon as you book your trip.
Why is that?
Because it'll cover you in case you need to cancel or postpone your trip for any reason, even before you leave.
Well, that's a good point.
It's about being proactive and protecting yourself from the get-go.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've explored the ABCs of travel insurance, why it's essential, and how to choose the right policy. But our deep dive isn't over yet.
Definitely not. Next time, we'll zoom in on the specific needs of Israelis traveling abroad